Hello, hello. How goes it, everyone? Happy Halloween. Welcome to the live chat. That is right. There's a whole bunch to talk about, as always, in the gaming space. It seems like there's just endless news, but the big stuff this week is that EA, Ubisoft, Sony, Nintendo, tons of big companies have all come out and dropped their quarterly earnings reports. So there was a ton of news from that. We have sales updates in terms of consoles and in terms of software. We have, games being delayed. We have games being announced, on and on and on. Tons and tons of news breakdown. So we can talk about whatever you want. If there's any questions, make sure you drop them in the chat as always, because this chat is your chat. And so first, let's get a couple of the big highlights out of the way. First of all, Sony is now, the PS4 is the second highest selling home console of all time, which is a pretty incredible, accomplishment. 102.8 million is where it is currently at. Hello, Wound Up. Hello, Empty and Full. Hello, Benji. Hello, Dom Don. What is up, everyone? But yeah, so that's, one of the big major updates is going to be that in terms of the PlayStation 4. Pretty incredible result for them, though the rest of their earnings were not quite as impressive. I kind of tweeted about this. A lot of PlayStation's metrics are actually down right now. And that's just because the generation is ending, right? We're seeing some very big declines in terms of revenue, in terms of operating profit. But that doesn't mean doom and gloom by any means. It just means this generation is dying down. It's coming to an end. Hello, Ace Evil. What's up? Hello, Casey. But yeah, so with PlayStation, I don't want anyone to think that it's doom and gloom. I also don't want, people to think that this was an amazing quarter for them, because it actually wasn't really. But it was good. It was good. It's just the end of the generation. All right, Casey's already dropped the first question here, so let's just go ahead and jump into that before we go into other major headlines. What do you think the Switch's lifetime sales will end at? Great question. I think we have seen enough evidence now to fully feel comfortable, that it's going to reach that 100 million mark. Can't say 100% sure for positive, right? There's still a lot of things that have to happen to get that console to 100 million, but I think it's pretty obvious now that it's not slowing down. So I do feel comfortable saying Switch will hit 100 million. How much it will go over that, I don't really know. I'm not necessarily confident it's going to be able to hit up to 110, 120 million, something like that. But I do think it can hit that 100 million number. I do think it's going to hit that. Light shipments are pretty strong, right? They announced that it shipped almost 2 million lights. For launch, right? The first basically 2 weeks. And they said it performed better than expected in the Americas. So, I do think it will hit that 100 million number. Not sure how much over that, but I do think it does get there. Hello, Ace Evil. Benji with a question here. The PS4 is now the second best-selling home console. Where do you expect it to go? Can the Switch match the PS4 this gen, as the sales curve seem identical? Ooh, that's a very interesting question. Like I just said, I do think Switch is going to hit 100 million. I don't know, though, if it will be able to have as strong of legs as the PS4 did late. It very well might. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it can't match PS4, but my gut instinct, if I just had to make a guess, is I don't think it's going to do what PS4 will end up doing lifetime. PS4, I'm thinking it's starting to slow, right? Like I mentioned, we're really now starting to see the PlayStation 4 slow down. Which is expected. We're at the very end of its life cycle, and the PS4 is still $300. I do think a price drop for that has to be imminent because of the slowdown that we're seeing. Sony's been prioritizing profit, right? I kind of tweeted about this. The PlayStation 5 is going to sell a ton of units off the bat, right? It's going to be a huge success right off the bat. PlayStation 5 is going to be a big seller, but it's not going to drive a ton of profit right off the bat, right? It's always the case with new platforms. You see more profit, in the second and the third years and things like that, as costs come down, as the ecosystem grows and you sell more software. So right off the bat, early, PlayStation 5 is not going to be a huge profit driver. So that's kind of why you've seen the PS4, I think, not come down at all in price for so long, is Sony's really trying to get every cent of profit they can out of the PS4 before the next gen launches. So that is going to get a price cut, I think, sometime in early 2020. I don't know that it's going to be January or February or something like that, but in the first half of the year, I do think we finally see PlayStation 4 get that permanent big price cut. Lifetime, I think it will make it. We're at 102.8 right now. I think it still has, I do think it can probably hit 120 million. I'm not sure how much over that. But I do think it'll make it to 120. I think it's got another, 18 million plus left in the tank. But I'm not sure how much over that. Maybe it goes further. Maybe it hits 130 million. I don't know. But I do think it's going to hit 120 plus. Feel pretty confident about that. All right. Personal belief from Ace Evil here is 90 to 100 million. Probably talking about Switch lifetime sales. Yeah, Ace Evil. I'm kind of similar to you. Like I said, I think it's going to hit 100 million. Not sure how much over that. So I'm kind of in the same ballpark as you are. Wound up, if the Switch could least beat the Wii, that would be amazing. Yeah, for sure. And it probably will. Wii was, basically right at 100 million itself, just slightly over if I'm recalling right. So, I think it'll be able to at least match it. I think Switch will at least be able to match the Wii. Ace Evil, I personally think if Switch had a Pro model like the PS4, it could potentially beat it. Interesting. Think Switch Pro will happen. So I've talked about this before a while back, right? Before the Lite even was announced, I had talked way back then that I had heard some rumors floating around about a quote Pro model. Other people had also said similar things, so I wasn't the only one that heard it, but it didn't end up happening, right? It only ended up being the Lite. So it could have been A, that those rumors were completely bogus and it was just a false rumor that was floating around, or B, maybe it's something that they put on the back burner until later. I'm not for sure if a Pro is going to happen now or not. I think it makes sense. I would like to see a Pro console enter the market. I think it would sell. But whether it ends up happening or not, I'm not 100% sure on that now. I'm just not sure. I do think it's a good idea, though, for sure. And if there was a Pro, it would definitely have a better chance of matching the PS4 long term. The Random Guy saw you went live and had to show support. Thanks, Random Guy. Thank you for being here. Thank you, everyone here who's in the chat. Thank you so much. Rang Tolo, I expect 130 million for PS4, and I expect similar result for Switch. Interesting. I don't think 130 million is by any means impossible for PS4. Like I said, I am expecting 120 plus. It could get to that 130. I don't think you're crazy to think that. Right now, I'm just setting my bar at 120, but if it goes over 120s, I should say, like 125, 26, something like that. But I don't think you're crazy to think 130 million. It could definitely do it. I think Switch, it might be a little bit tougher to get there. I think we'll have to see long term. My question with the Switch, the big question I think on a lot of people's minds is how is it going to look when next gen gets here, right? How's it going to sell when PlayStation 5's on the market, when Scarlett's on the market, and it has a lot more competition than it currently does. Now, granted, Switch is its own thing, right? The Scarlett and PS5 are not going to be able to be handheld devices, so that alone makes it its own market. Plus, first-party Nintendo games, which are so popular, you can only get on the Switch. So my hunch is that it's still going to sell very strongly after next gen anyways, but I am interested to see, what kind of effect those new consoles will have on Switch. So 130 to me seems tough for Switch, but we'll see. It very well could. Benji, Nintendo first-party titles are doing great. Yeah, absolutely they are. But why don't we see GameCube Wii HD remasters? Ooh, good question. That would be easy money for them, right? And where are the new IPs for Nintendo? So this is a two-part question here. Basically, where are the HD remasters that aren't Wii U games? And yeah, new IPs. So in regards to your first question, that is a good one. We're seeing that remasters and remakes can sell very strong. Look at Link's Awakening, right? Link's Awakening did 3.13, I think, million units in like 2 weeks. That's insane, right? That's insane. Link's Awakening is probably going to go on to be the best-selling top-down style Zelda ever, right? It already set that record in NPD. Obviously it's not as big as Breath of the Wild, which is a full 3D Zelda. But out of those top-down style Zeldas, it's just roaring out of the gate. And that's a remake of an old game, right? We saw Resident Evil 2, totally different console, but, Resident Evil 2 remake sell very, very strongly this year. Final Fantasy 7 remake is going to sell really, really good. So remakes and remasters have a lot of demand. I would personally love to see like Twilight Princess, get the HD treatment on Switch. There's a lot. Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know why they're not delving more into those older games and bringing them back, that GameCube era Nintendo. A lot of people I know have been wanting Mario Sunshine. I've seen a lot of people on Twitter and stuff saying, hey, Nintendo, where's Mario Sunshine at? Give us a re-release. So I agree with you that there's money to be had there. Whether they're going to keep pursuing those and, remake them or not, don't know. EA, for example, just commented that they're going to start remastering beloved games. So companies do see this demand. So, very well Nintendo might. And then the second part of your question, where's the new IP? Well, we just had one, but it's not necessarily maybe one that everyone wants, which is Ring Fit Adventure, right? That's a brand new IP, and it's selling very strong. It had a great result in Japan, had a really good first week, and then it only dropped by 6% in its second week in Japan, which is just an incredible hold. In the UK, Ring Fit actually had a bigger second week than it had its launch week, which is insane. And in the US, I've seen something similar, that it looks like the second week was bigger than the first week for Ring Fit. So that is a new IP. I know that's probably not the kind of new IP you're talking about, but that it does appear to be a very, very big success for Nintendo. In terms of other like hardcore, like core demographic IPs, I hope we see some. There doesn't seem to be much on the board right now, right? There's a lot of games coming that a lot of people, including myself, are looking forward to, Metroid and Bayonetta and games like this. But they are sequels. You have a very good point on that. Fisher King, I feel like Nintendo shouldn't had used the Marvel license to make Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3. Neither Nintendo nor Koei Tecmo talked about it during their respective quarter reporting, but both of them mentioned Fire Emblem, I believe. That's a good question. And I tweeted about this. It's one thing I was surprised by is I think that Marvel hasn't passed 1 million shipped, considering no one's talked about it. I would think if you shipped over 1 million units of that game, you would want to acknowledge that. And this is doubly surprising because Marvel has done pretty well in the US. I can't go into exact unit numbers, of course, like always. That's all. That's all private data. Not allowed to talk about that. It's all NDA. But it has done pretty well in the US. So I thought Marvel would be 1 million seller by now. But it must have just not done very well in other markets. It's the only thing I can think of because its US performance is solid. It's not like crazy. It's not like a mind-blowing number, but it's a solid performer. So I am surprised. Yes, that does surprise me that Marvel has not shipped 1 million. It must be doing fairly weak in some non-US markets. Only thing I can think of. Ryan here again. What is your opinion the most impressive Switch game in terms of sales? I personally think it's Zelda. The game is at 16 million right now and will surely surpass 20 million. That was insane back in 2016-17. Definitely is right there. I would say for me, my number one most impressive is actually probably Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Just because that's not even a new game. It's a remaster, basically. It's not even a remake. It's like a remastered with all the DLC and everything in it. It's a great game, but it's not even a brand new, new game. It was on the Wii U. And that game's going to do way over 20 million. But I definitely get your point. Zelda's probably number 2 for me. I would say that's my second most impressive because it's going to be by far the biggest Zelda ever. I mean, it's already the biggest, but it's going to be like by far the biggest Zelda game ever released. So that would be my number 2. Number 1 would be Mario Kart Deluxe, and number 2 would be Zelda. Random guy. Yeah, I think PS4 is going to surprise everyone sales-wise this holiday. Next year, price drop will have PS4 flying off shelves. Well, it could. PS4 right now is in a bit of a slightly, again, I don't want to paint this as a doom and gloom picture because the PS4 is doing amazing, right? It's the second best-selling home console ever. But what I mean is that it is slowing down. We definitely saw it this quarter. They shipped over 1 million less PS4s this quarter than, the same time last year. Part of that is, of course, things like Spider-Man, was the comp the year before. So, it is a tough comp, but things are slowing down. So it needs the price cut. I do agree with you that when prices drop, things will improve, but it does need it. It needs that price drop. Wound Up Penguin. Astral Chain and Daemon Ex Machina were new Nintendo-owned IP that just released this year. Oh, good call. Good call, Wound Up. Very, very good call. Very good call. I think if PS5 and Xbox Next are indeed $500 machines, Switch should be fine in late 2021. Good point there. I do expect PlayStation 5 and Scarlet to be $500 launches. I've talked about that a lot, that I'm expecting those consoles to release at $499. Now, there is a chance that Sony and Microsoft eat, they take the hit and they sell those at a loss. It's not unheard of. It's happened before. It's even done it by that much, margin before. The PlayStation 3 famously sold for a huge loss, early on. So it's not impossible that they come in at $400. But I feel like at least the parts in the machine look like a $500 console to me. So if it comes in under 500, I think the only way to make that happen is to eat a loss on the console and try to, to make the money back through things like subscriptions, services, PlayStation Network, game sales, you know how it goes. But my hunch is $500, and I do agree with you that high cost does help Switch, because by 2021, Switch will probably be, instead of the Lite being $199, the standard Switch will probably be $199, right? So it'll have a huge price advantage. So that will help it continue to have legs. All right, Carnage Ghost. Hello there, Benji. Hello, Carnage. So Sony recently said they want to. Sony recently said they want to get more studios. It made me scratch my head because who is next? Can't think of anyone other than Bluepoint, because Remedy Control flopped, so they are out. Bluepoint does seem to be the strongest contender, I would say. We do know that Bluepoint is currently making a PlayStation 5 game. They just tweeted out about it, actually, what seems like a hint. We don't really know. It's like a happy Halloween tweet, but it sure seems like they're hinting at something. So Bluepoint, I think, is your most likely candidate to be acquired by Sony. Outside of them, yeah, it's a little bit harder to think who they would acquire. There's definitely people they can. Remedy was a strong candidate for a long time. But yeah, Bluepoint would be my number one guess. If they're going to acquire someone, that would be my bet. Burby, and hello, Benji. What up, Burby? What up? Fisher King, Daemon Ex Machina is a Marvelous IP. Oh, okay, so Marvelous owns it. Random Guy, Nintendo has been great at selling us gimmicks. That's one way to look at it, though I hear Ring Fit Adventure is actually really good. I haven't bought it yet myself, but the feedback I've heard is that it's actually a very, very good, very fun game. But, of course, it is an exercise game. Like, you got to be down to do some exercise. But I hear it's good. I hear it's fun. Big Mooch here, or Mooch, or Mock. Hey, Benji, give us your personal Death Stranding last sale prediction. Okay, yeah, let's do this, right? Death Stranding is about to launch. Perfect time to do a sales prediction. So, this is going out on a major limb. So don't take this as definite by any means. This could end up radically wrong, especially because reviews aren't out and who knows how the game's going to be received. If I had to do a hunch without seeing a single sales unit on the game, let me think. Launch, I'm expecting over 1 million in NPD in the US. I think it does over 1 million in its first month. How much over that, I don't know, but I do think it will be 1 million plus in NPD. And lifetime, let's just do a radical guess. Lifetime, let's say 8 to 10 million, in that range. I know it's a big number. We're talking about 2 million units difference there, but 8 to 10, just a literal guess. I'm just throwing stuff out there because I don't know what its launch is and I don't know what legs are. But that's what my guess will be. Could be way over that, could be under that, but that's my guess. Final prediction, 1 million plus in its first NPD, 8 to 10 million lifetime for Death Stranding. Cool. Carnage Ghost. And my other question is, why do you think Sony made Medieval Remake and didn't include the second game, like Crash Remake, for example? Do you think they will continue series or just remakes of PS1 titles? I think the reason they didn't do multiple Medievals is they weren't entirely sure how it would be received, right? If you're doing multiple games, it's just multiple times the work. Granted, these are remasters, they're not, or remakes, they're not, like a brand new game where you got to come up with everything. They're remaking all the assets, but they know what the base game is. So it's not as much work as creating a brand new from the ground up game, but it's still every single game you add in there, it's more work. Crash, I feel like everyone involved, Sony, Activision, I think everyone was very confident that that was going to be a big seller. Same thing with Spyro. After how big they saw Crash do, I think people felt very confident internally that Spyro was going to be a big seller. But Medieval, they probably were like, we just don't really know. There was no gauge really to guess. There hadn't been anything medieval related on the market in so long. So I think that's why. I think they just stuck with the first game because they didn't want to get too in depth with a budget and see how that sells. If Medieval ends up being a success, I think you'll get more. But that would be my guess why they just did the one. All right. Another Carnage here. It was actually the rest of your question. Sorry. Like, is it test the water to see if people are interested in more remakes or they want to revive some of these old franchises? I really hope we get Sly 4 and the Order 1886 under New Worldwide Studios leadership. I'd love to see an Order sequel. The first game was heavily flawed. Heavily flawed. I think most of us agree with that. But I did like the setting. The graphics were amazing. I liked the idea of the Order, not necessarily the execution, but I would be interested in a sequel if they vastly improve the gameplay. Sly 4, I think, is a long shot in the near term. I don't think you'll see a new Sly game for a while. But it could happen, but I can't really think of anyone at Sony that would be currently working on Sly. I think that's a bit away if it does happen. Ace Evil, let me see. PS4 Japan is really concerning if anyone is following it. Yeah. So I keep track of the Japanese market, but I'm not like an expert on it. I consider myself really well versed in the US market and pretty well versed in a lot of Europe, like UK and Spain and things like that. Not like an expert at Spain, but like informed on it. And France and countries like this. Japan, I definitely watch, but I'm not like a hardcore expert on that by any means. But yeah, I have noticed that PS4 looks real light in sales. It looks like it's not exactly tearing it up. So yeah, I agree with you. I think they need major price cuts on the PlayStation 4 in general. Benji here. The chatter seems to indicate that PS5 will be the most powerful next-gen console. Can Microsoft allow such a situation to happen after this gen, where PS4's superior graphical power helped drive more sales? Great question. I know what you're talking about. The rumors that are keep in mind, anyone watching this, none of this is confirmed. This is just rumor chatter, but the rumor chatter does state that the PlayStation 4 or 5 is slightly more powerful than Scarlet. And I say slightly because from the rumors, it's like very slight. Like we're talking less of a difference than the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One were in terms of like percentage. One way it was compared was the difference between a regular Xbox One and an Xbox One S, not an XS. So very minimal. I don't think it's that big of a deal, Benji, if it's that small of a gap. Now, if it's another big gap, right? If somehow this ends up being, the difference like between PS4, the standard model, and the Xbox One standard model, yeah, I don't think that's good. I don't think that's good for Microsoft at all. Especially because Sony inherently has a larger audience, right? They just have way more market share in a lot of countries that, Microsoft has made, very little strides in, like Japan and mainland Europe. So by default, PlayStation has a higher sales ceiling than Xbox does. So Xbox basically needs every advantage it can get. So if it's like significantly weaker, I don't think that's good. Yeah, I don't think it's good for them. But if it's very, very slight, a tiny difference, I don't think it's a big deal. The Arkham Knight Hero. Hello, man. I love these streams. Thanks, Arkham Knight. I love doing these streams. They're blast. You guys ask me the best questions, and it also makes me think about these things more. I think I get more knowledgeable doing these streams because you ask me questions and make me look at things, in different light. So you help me too a lot. My question today, do you think the new leader who will take Sean's place at Worldwide Studios chairman will greenlight more IPs, or is it up to Jim Ryan and whoops, sorry, I lost your question. Or is it up to Jim Ryan and nothing will change? Okay. Complicated question here. For one, that whole Sean Layden mystery is bizarre. We've talked about it on the chat before. I'm sure you've talked about it, all of you on forums and Twitter and Facebook. That whole situation's bizarreville. Everything that happened with Sean is strange. The way he left / was like, who knows? It seems like he left of his own accord, but whatever happened there, it was just strange. For the longest time, I haven't checked in the last few days, but he still had on his Twitter profile that he was chairman of Worldwide Studios, long after he's not with the company. It's just strange. Whole situation strange. We never found out what happened there. So it's a complicated question to answer without knowing what the heck led to that, right? What led to his departure? In terms of Jim Ryan, I do think you'll see more new IP in general, especially because a new generation's getting ready to start. Pretty much everyone in the industry that works at major publishers will tell you the best time to launch new IP is right when a new generation's beginning. And there's a reason for that. It's because you have less competition in terms of major brands, there's not tons of games on the market in those early years. And also people are looking for fresh experiences. They just got this brand new console. They want to see what it can do. They're ready for brand new things, right? That's why early on in this gen, you saw stuff and they were cross-gen, but that's why you saw games like Watch Dogs and The Division and things like that early on, is because, and you saw less sequels, less new IP, I should say, from Ubisoft the longer the generation went. It's because the best time to get those out the door are early. EA Motive is making a new IP for next gen. Square Enix is making a new IP with their Luminous Production Studios for next gen. So I do think you will see PlayStation have some new IP, but I do think you'll also see a lot of sequels. It's just the reality of the situation. You're going to see a God of War sequel. You're going to see a Spider-Man sequel. You're going to see a Horizon Zero Dawn sequel. They have so many major brands that they basically have to do sequels, right? You can't just let those games sit on the shelf. Now, your most likely candidate, I think, for a major new IP next is Naughty Dog, because Uncharted, they're kind of done with that. The Last of Us Part 2, I'll be surprised if there's a Part 3. It could happen, but I don't think so. I think Part 2 is kind of the end of that story, and I think Naughty Dog's ready for something new. So I think that's going to be it's going to be years away, and I'm sure someone else will have another new IP as well, but I do expect Naughty Dog's next game to be a major new IP. Isma, how is Luigi's Mansion 3 doing? I'm not sure. I've been off work, and I've also been out of the loop kind of doing my own thing. So the last few days. So I don't know. I don't have any numbers for you, but I'll tweet about it soon once I find out. Arkham Knight Hero, for example, level 5 would love to make a third Dark Cloud game. Ooh, interesting. I wonder if the new chairman will let them do that and greenlight it. Dark Cloud seems like a definite long shot, but you never know. But I wouldn't expect that. Sam Walton, I would love Ready at Dawn. I'm guessing you're saying to be acquired by Sony. Could happen. I definitely could see that. Let's see what their next couple games are. I think The Order, was a bit of an underperformer, so that probably scared Sony away from an acquisition there. But let's see how their next, I know they're working on a big new game right now, a big third-person action shooter type game. So let's see how that does. Nanny, may Sony acquire Techland? Ooh, interesting. Techland is possible. I think Blue Point, though, would be the one you should watch. Rang, I don't know if market is ready for next gen at 500. That's almost as PS3 and Microsoft had to drop the price of Xbox One after 6 months. Not saying they can't do good, but I hardly see PS4 numbers part of the reason Microsoft had to drop price so quick is to compete with the PlayStation 4. I think if both are at 500, it's less of a problem than whenever one's at 400 and one's at 5. That's a big discrepancy. So I think that's the main reason. If they're both at 500, it's less of a problem. Again, they could be at 400, but if so, I think it's a loss. You're talking about an SSD. You're talking about fairly cutting-edge CPUs and fairly cutting-edge GPU technology. This is going to be a lot more advanced parts than the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One were whenever they launched. Whenever those consoles launched, they were using already really old CPU technology and things like that. So just the parts look a lot more expensive to me. So I will be shocked if these aren't 500. I'd love to be wrong, though. Things will sell better if I'm wrong. All right, we're at 30 minutes. I'll do like 10 more minutes to the chat. All right, we'll do like 10 more. Ace Evil talking to Benji, Sony banning the marketing material, saying most power. Oh, okay, interesting. I'll read this out loud because it's interesting. Sony abandoned the marketing material of saying most powerful. So Microsoft might be more powerful. Anyone who missed that, Sony listed something about the PlayStation 5. I believe it was a job, like a job advertisement to come work for them. And they listed the PlayStation 5 as the most powerful, console. And then that was taken down rather quickly. I don't know that it means Xbox is more powerful, but I think it means the reason they pulled that is I think it's one of those things that might still be up in the air, right? These consoles aren't even officially announced. Things can still be tweaked. Your baseline is set. We're too close to next gen for like radical redesigns, but there are still tweaks. There's clock speeds that you can mess with and things like that. So I think the main reason Sony pulled that is because they just don't technically know really until launch, probably, who is decidedly the most powerful. Arkham Knight Hero, well, about who Sony should acquire, they could easily acquire teams like Ready at Dawn, Remedy. Yeah, all those are possibilities. Even Remedy still. I don't think Remedy's out of the question. I think it's still up in the air. Benji, why Call of Duty is still so successful this gen? Why EA doesn't manage to do it with Battlefield? Good question here, actually. And this can lead us into something with EA. So EA has announced, this surprised a lot of people. It did not surprise me. Let me get a drink really quick. That basically Battlefield is not going to be ready for next-gen launch. It's coming out fiscal year 2022, which basically means that Battlefield 6 or whatever it ends up being is a holiday 2021 title. So it's going to come a year after next-gen releases. And I think that's a very smart move, and it did not surprise me, even though it surprised many people. And that was because Battlefield 5, at least at release, performed very middling, right? It was not a major seller out of the gate. And I think they know they need to make sure the next Battlefield hits good. It's got to get all the time it needs. It needs all the polish it needs. I've heard Battlefield 5's actually gotten really good through expansions and updates. That's one thing I've seen a lot of people comment is Battlefield 5 now is in a good place. But they want to make sure the next Battlefield has time to cook. That way, right out of the gate, there's no controversy. Battlefield's a massive IP. If you release a couple in a row, that have problems, that can lead to not good things. In terms of Call of Duty, it's shocking how consistent that franchise is. So Modern Warfare, as we all saw, I'm sure, it had over $600 million in sales, in its first 3 days. It's the biggest Call of Duty launch this generation, which I had been predicting. So on the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, it's the biggest launch ever for Call of Duty. And, you got to commend it to Activision. They just know how to keep that franchise going. The marketing is a big, strong part of it. The brand name is just so established, right? It would take a lot to bring Call of Duty down. Even like the controversial entries like Infinite Warfare were still massive sellers. And they found a way to, even though that game kind of dipped hard, to come right back with the next entry. So, you got to give it to Activision. They know what they're doing with that brand. Burby, can you say something about how Luigi's Mansion 3 Switch is tracking? I guess end of 19 at 5 million worldwide. I can't say yet because like I said I'm kind of out of the circle. I'll talk about it this week. Sometime this week, you'll see me talk about Luigi's Mansion 3 on Twitter. Fisher King, curious to see how The Witcher 3 on Switch is doing. Seems to be doing really well physically in some European countries. Yeah, it seems to be doing okay. Not like crazy numbers, but it's looking like it's performing kind of like how Skyrim on Switch did. So, good result. Definitely good. Ryan, since you said you follow some of Europe markets, do you know something about Italy? Ooh, that's my country, and I feel there are really few news about it, and I'm sad because I'm super interested. Italy is also one of those I don't know a ton about because, like you said, there's not a lot of news about it. It's a hard one to really follow. They don't give a ton of data. Much easier to follow, markets like UK, Spain, even Germany, you get a decent amount of information on. Italy is one though that it's kind of tough. You don't really hear much out of there, so I'm not super familiar with it. Sorry, but there's a lot of gamers from Italy. I have a lot of gamers from Italy that follow me on Twitter. I wish I could hear more news from there. The random guy, PS Now growth. Ooh, good call out, random guy. Was really impressive. Yes. I also think these limited time games is a smart move. It hurries people in to play big games. Most will stick around after the free week and pay the monthly fee. So for those that didn't see, PlayStation Now is now over 1 million subscribers, which is up from 700,000, I believe, in the last reporting. This comes after the price cut. That seems to have been successful. It got them to over 1 million, which is a good number. I got to give it to Sony on this one. Just a shout out really quick. Thank you, Sony, for providing this. We have no Game Pass subscribers still. Props to Sony that even though they didn't have a huge number, right? When they were at 700,000, it wasn't like a super impressive number, but they still told it to us, right? Like we knew how many subscribers it had. Game Pass, by all accounts, seems to be well over that, right? Seems to be probably even over 2 million. But we don't know. Microsoft won't give us a number. Props to Sony for telling us that. But yes, random guy, I agree with you. The price cut seems to have been effective. Domdon 950. Will you keep an eye on Luigi's Mansion 3 sales and any Yes. Yep. I will be talking about it this week. Fisher King, just realized BlizzCon is tomorrow. Oh, man. Yeah, that's going to be an S-storm in the making, he says, or they say. Yeah, that's going to be interesting. The announcements seem epic. The rumors are, Diablo 4, tons is leaked about it. Overwatch 2 or whatever it's called, tons is leaked out about it. But apparently also Diablo 2 is going to get a remaster. There's a new WoW expansion. It sounds like in terms of announcements, this is going to be an incredible BlizzCon. But after the whole China situation, the way the crowd reacts is going to be very interesting to watch. Very interesting. Random guy, we don't know if Sean Layden left because of personal reasons. Yeah, we don't know. We don't know, random guy. It could be anything. We literally don't know anything about that Sean situation. So who knows? It's hard for me to comment on anything with that because it's just a total unknown. Glover Parker. Hey, Benji, great to see you. Good to see you, Glover. Knowing that Link's Awakening made 3.1 million sales in September, counting digital sales, would that have been enough units to land in the top 3 in NPD? Probably yes. Did we get a digital split for the U.S. market on that? I'm trying to think. Tough to say, honestly. Probably, though. Probably. Yeah, I think it would have. Can't say for sure, but I think it would have been enough. Benji here. I know you follow as well the various streaming wars. Oh, yeah. If you had to pick only one video game service, music service, and movie service, it would be. If I could only be subscribed to one, I think it would be Game Pass, including TV and movies and all of that. I think Game Pass because I'm a gamer more than anything. I like TV, I like movies, but my number one passion is video games. And Game Pass is really good, y'all. It's really good. Like the amount of games you get for what you pay is fantastic. So if I could only pick one, it would be Game Pass. If I could only pick one streaming service that's not video games, it'd probably be Netflix. Disney Plus looks awesome, but I would mainly want Disney Plus for like the Star and Marvel shows, not really the movies so much. And Netflix has, a lot of shows that I watch too. So probably that. On time. I'll do these questions. Call it, all right? So I see 4 questions. I'll answer those and then we'll end the chat. Star Wars Battlefront 2 updates. That's an awesome name. That is awesome. That it's just straight up Star Wars Battlefront 2 update. beginning of PS4 life. Yeah, and recently got revived. Yep, after Crash. Do you think Ubisoft will revive Rayman? Ooh, good question. Or do you think platformers will die again next gen? That's a great question. So Crash is back, Spyro's back. You're going to get brand new entries, I believe, in both of those. Crash is a certainty. Spyro, I think so too. I think you're going to get a brand new platforming Spyro game as well. Rayman is a tough question. Ubisoft's in a bit of a transition phase right now because, they were doing their big open world games as a service titles. Like that was their main focus. But then you saw Breakpoint and The Division 2 both underperform this year, like majorly. And so Jason Schreier just talked about that things are changing up big time in Ubisoft. They're asking for big, what's unique about your game? If we're going to put your game in production, what makes it special? So I would say if ever there was a time Rayman could come back, it's now, because it looks like Ubisoft is willing to take pitches for something that's not a straight up big open world games as a service. So it could happen. But I don't think platformers are going to die. The opposite. I think Crash is going to be back like in a new game, and same with Spyro. I wish Spyro had Rayman had a remake for 25th anniversary. Yep. Iacona, do you think that Switch will sell more consoles for the October-December quarter? Yes, than they did last year. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Holiday 2018. Everything was driven by Let's Go and Smash. This year we have refreshed Switch, plus Lite, plus don't forget Pokemon. Yes. I expect Switch to be hugely up. They've been up all year in the US, basically. I expect Switch this holiday to have 20 to 30% growth would be my prediction. 20 to 30% over last year's numbers. Benji, do you expect Microsoft to regain content and marketing exclusivity for big names like Call of Duty or Destiny next gen? Good question. Call of Duty, I'm going to guess no. That partnership with Sony seems pretty strong. Destiny, I could see, though. Yeah, if there's a Destiny 3 that ends up being next gen, I could see Xbox going after that. Bungie, Microsoft, the whole history they have, I could see that. Carlos Navarro, considering how strong is Switch performing this year, I found it weird that they didn't correct their forecast for the current fiscal year of 18. I think they'll reach 20. I agree with you, but I think that's intentional. I've talked about this before. Last year they missed their guidance and then they revised it down and they missed again. They missed their revised number. I think they're just playing it ultra safe. Like they're just playing it safe. They're like, yep, we're not going to mess with it. 18 million is the forecast. That way, if they come in at 20 million, they can be like, boom, we did 2 million over what we expected. Basically the exact opposite of what happened last year, where they missed their expectations twice. So I think that's intentional. They're not raising it. They want to be conservative just in case something crazy happens and they don't hit it, which I think we all think they will. Paul Crooks, hey, Benji, missed the last couple live chats. I enjoy them. Thank you, Paul, immensely. Keep up the good work. Thank you. I'm late and I saw a question about Luigi's Mansion was already asked. Thank you, Paul. Very kind words. Thank you. Carlos saying cheers. Dropping frames. Thanks as usual. All right. Thanks, everyone. Thank you for joining the live chat. As always, hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't already. Thank you for joining the chat as always. It's been awesome. And I will see you on Twitter or on YouTube next time. I got to wrap up the chat. I'm going to take my daughter trick-or-treating. She's going to go as a ladybug, I think, and do some Halloween trick-or-treating. So thanks, everyone. And I will see you next time.